Hello, welcome to Loudland. We are back in 2026 and it is beautiful to be here. I'm Khandie and we're going to get straight into this one because this is not quite hot off the press. It's been the last couple of days, but I have been enjoying the New Year's celebrations. So let me say something that's going to piss a few photographers off straight away. Owning copyright to a photo does not automatically give you the right to do what the F you want to do with it, okay? If you're sat there muttering, well, actually, congratulations, this episode is definitely for you. Today we're talking about the photographer versus band lawsuit, where a US photographer is allegedly, I need to say allegedly because we don't, we need to know it has been sent to cease and desist over an alleged exploitation of an image. And why this case should have, and honestly, this case should have giant flashing warning signs for every photographer who doesn't understand contract licensing, GDPR, or how the digital space actually works in 2026. This isn't celebrity gossip, although it is about two incredible powerhouses in the industry. This is about how photographers are still screwing things up and why ignorance is no longer a defense. Now, I want to just start and say I'm trying to get the facts as best as I can, how I understand it. So please go do your own due diligence and check into this. And this is all allegedly, because it's obviously an ongoing legal matter. So according to Enemy, The Guardian, Australian media reporting that Amy Taylor, who's a lead singer in the Amyl and the Sniffers, which is one of my favourite bands at the moment, has filed legal action against a US-based photographer. The dispute centres around some photographs that were taken and used for a Vogue Portugal shoot. So there are some key bits that photographers need to pay attention to. The shoot was agreed on limited basis. The images were intended for editorial use, and the team behind the band and that rejected further licensing requests. This is as I understand it. So although the image, it was originally declined, the photo, whatever it was, the photographer reached out and said, hey, Portugal want to use them, and they were like, yeah, okay, just for this. Well, it's since been alleged that the photographer has gone on to sell them as fine arts, put them in a zine, and has used them publicly to promote. And the band have said, this is not a case of you did not take the photo, but you're now commercially exploiting my image without permission. And that distinction matters more than most photographers realise, because there's an important note here, because we're not here to be sloppy. And I want to just remind you that these are allegations and the photographer has not been found liable at any time. I think it's just a cease and desist right now, from what I understand. And I love both of these two. So I'm going to use this as a learning example, and I feel uncomfortable already about this whole thing, but I want to use it as a learning example because this case exposes massive misunderstanding in the photography industry, because people are talking and I'm seeing it in the groups and no one's really understanding it. So there's a dangerous sentence that I keep seeing written and spoken about where people say, well, in the copyright, I can do what I want. Yes, but that's only one step. And it's also no. Copyright does not equal usage rights. It's not equal to usage rights. Copyright is not equal. And certainly doesn't equal consent to use them. And owning copyright does not mean you get to use images however you want for commercial exploitation. In both the UK and the US, the photographer typically owns copyright by default. There are certain states in America, like always, have their own rules and don't necessarily. But copyright controls the image itself, but not the person's likeness, identity, or an endorsement value. If you agree to editorial use only, one publication only, one campaign only, one context, that agreement limits to what you can do next, and you can't reinterpret it later because you perhaps want to sell some prints of it. So if you think fine art magically makes it exempt, you're also wrong, which someone actually wrote. I can't believe that. The fact is, selling the images after you explicitly, according to this, didn't have permission is the problem. And the other use, because the use was, if I'm reading it right, and I need you to go do your own checklist, I don't want to get myself sued or in trouble at any point, says that they were only allowed to use them in the Vogue article, and then they've been used elsewhere. That's what I'm kind of getting from what I'm reading here. And I believe The Guardian in the UK obtained the documents, and yeah, there was no agreement that authorised the sale of the photo shoot any other way, and not using zines. It was only permitted to be used in the publication for Vogue Portugal. It's kind of where I'm getting. You might think, okay, this isn't a big deal. Well, it is, because people in the groups are not understanding. Now, this case is obviously US and Australian based, because the band is in the US and the photographer's the band is in Australia and the photographer's in the US. But if you're in the UK, let's translate it properly. In the US, many states, not all, because it's complicated, recognise rights of publicity. That means, as I understand it, I need to just have to understand it, but you get my point, right? By the way, this is a great time to subscribe, because these kind of things, when they come up, I like to talk about them on the podcast. And although I try and update every week, an episode. Sometimes I chuck one in like this one a little bit extra, so you get a bit of extra sauce. So make sure you subscribe now, wherever you're listening to this, so you don't miss any. So, rights of publicity. This means a person can control commercial use of their likeness, endorsement implications, merchandising, and promotional use, which is why celebrities can even sue. I know everyone loves suing in America, apparently. They can sue even when a photographer owns a copyright. And this Amy Taylor case leans heavily into this territory, in my opinion. Okay. So, from what I get, permission was granted in very explicit terms, like it can only be used for this. And then the person somehow has gone, I'm going to use it for this. Now, then maybe there was permission and it's just a misunderstanding and the paperwork's got lost or whatever. I don't want to imply someone's behaving impersonally. I don't, because this is very much an ongoing case and we can't do that. But what I'm using is an example. You can't say this is what I'm using for and then use it for something else. Okay. So in the UK, which is often where photographers get a little lazy with this, for UK doesn't have a single image rights law. Okay. They don't have one that just goes, it's image rights law. We have a few. We have contract law, passing off, misrepresentation, and data protection, UK GDPR. And yes, GDPR applies to photographs when the person is identifiable. Okay. But that doesn't mean that things like street photography is illegal. But what it does mean is images are personal data and you need a legal basis to process and use them commercially. Saying I took the photo is not a legal basis. So if you're selling prints, promoting services and building a brand, you're operating commercially whether you like it or not. So that's a lesson to all you hobbyist photographers out there who are putting it on Instagram and getting followships and earning money or getting brand deals or whatever you're doing, promote, even if you do it on a YouTube channel, is there's potential there to get monetization. You get yourself into a whole sticky situation. Okay. And if you sell prints, even if you're a hobbyist, you're selling prints, that's commercial. Okay. And a lot of people don't understand that. It's commercial. And by the way, monetary gain doesn't, or remuneration, should I say, it doesn't have to be monetary. It can be you're gifted an item, you're given a discount, you're given something. So please be aware. And this, I think, is why photographers are really behind the curve in the digital space, because every image can live forever. It's shared, reposted, screenshot, sold, repurposed, taken out of context. So when someone says, I don't want my image used like that, they're not being precious. I think we need to remember that. They're protecting their imagery, their safety, and their livelihood. And goes especially from what I've seen when I did a quick check. A lot of women do this, public figures, marginalized creatives, and people with a recognized platform. And the age-old attitude, well, it's art, is lazy and I think quite outdated, but art doesn't override success. We've seen this kind of thing before. Editorial images ended up on merch, and I have my own example of this. I shot a band album art cover in the contract, and in all the information explicitly said it was only for the art of the album and posters to promote the album, but they ended up putting it on t-shirts and postcards for people to buy, and that was not part of it, and I ended up having to renegotiate that contract. We've also seen people's wedding photos used in ads by photographers and they haven't given permission, and I see this quite a lot in the wedding groups where someone says my photos were released and I didn't give permission and now they're on an advert and everyone's seen them and my ex has seen it or whatever. It doesn't matter. People have a right to say no for you using them commercially. You as a photographer retain copyright typically in the UK, but to be able to use them beyond the purpose of what they've said causes you some problems. I also think there has been in times where portrait clients have discovered their face has been sold on stock sites. Okay. And although they now ask for a model release, back in the day, I don't believe they did at times. And I remember a friend of mine discovered that a portrait session she did at a camera club saw her selling how do I say this without getting myself told off? An explicit product. That'll do. An explicit product online. Her face. Yeah. Okay. We've seen people selling street portraits without releases. Now, I will just say, um, that's why you might have noticed a lot of street photographers get permission. They get it verbally. Hey, you okay with me putting this on my social media and using it? And then they get it in the video. You might notice that's been an influx because they've been caught out before. There's even a case of a photographer, I believe, who's quite well known, who did street portraits, and the lady he photographed actually declined and he put the video of her declining permission to use her as if it would get him some traction. And what actually happened was it got him a lot of bad publicity because she declined him the use of using her stuff. She was sat in a cafe. He came into that cafe area. He was on the public space interview. She said, "No, I don't want to be used for that." And he continued to use it. And he gets money from his social media. Therefore, it's commercial use. And she's already declined public space, but she's declined the use of her. And he kind of implied that she was being a bit of a Karen about it. It did not go well for him. There's also, can I just say, ways it always ends up coming down. Legal threats, takedowns, reputational damage, and career implosions. And I've seen it. And yet there are photographers who are saying, I don't think it would matter. What's the problem? That sentence has never saved anybody. Okay. So as a photographer, what can we take from this huge situation that's going on? I don't think it's that huge. I think, well, obviously it's huge for the band. They've had their, I think for anybody, your boundaries have been allegedly ignored. We have to put allegedly. I don't want to get sued, but also I think it's a great lesson for us as photographers to take stock of what we do as a business. So here's some non-negotiable checklists that I have. My contract specifies where images can be used, where they cannot be used, whether prints, merch, zines are ever allowed, whether social media is included. Okay, I have it listed. I don't necessarily use a model release because I use my contract that's in there, but I know people use model releases. Just make sure if you use a model release, you have it itemized within your contract. So mine has my questionnaire and my invoice, and that it's all related, so they're all together. Okay. I try to match it with actual usage. I don't be vague, and I have it signed before any shoot. I don't do it afterwards. I personally don't use a model release like that unless, of course, I'm going to sell on stock. Then I have one, but I very rarely sell portraits on stock. I also make sure I'm GDPR aware. In the UK, you must be incredibly clear, even how you store the images. This is why I use Studio Ninja for keeping people's data safe. I also use Pixet for sending over people's images so it's all encrypted, all that kind of stuff, right? So it has to have a clear purpose, clear stories, clear usage, and clear deletion policies. All your contracts need to have when you delete someone's pictures. So maybe you'll delete the pictures after 3 years. Maybe you'll delete them after a year. It's up to you how you do it, but you need to have a clear defined in that. And when people sign, they have to acknowledge that. Also, you need to have respect the word no. Not, oh, we'll revisit it again, or I'll try it anyway, or they won't notice. A no is a no, even if you took the picture. Do not assume you have the right. And now when people come at me and say, oh, but Khandie, I hired the model in the fact that she was going to do this for me so I could use it for promo. Well, then that would be in your contract and the image is released. If I know that some people have said in their contracts that if the model or the client, if they've done the shoot for publicity or promo, then declines it, they will then expect to pay the full price of that shoot. I don't know the legality of that because I've never had into that issue. I tried to talk about it and everyone says, no, that seems to be legal, although I'm worried that isn't legal. So if you are a legal body, please let me know on that one. Photographers love to scream about their own rights, right? But rights come with responsibility. So if you want to be taken seriously in this industry, you need to act like a professional, understand the legal landscape, and stop hiding behind outdated myths. Because the truth is, no one wants to say it out loud, however, but if you ignore consent, contracts, and control, you're not edgy, you're certainly not rebellious, you're a freaking idiot. And that is the reason why the industry has such mistrust in it. Now, I think this goes to say we've had many examples of where people have misused images. I've had one of my own experiences. I've even been misused in someone's images themselves. There was a fitness influencer in our gym who filmed herself doing a workout. I was in the background, very visible in the background. I didn't know she was filming. There was no signs up. It's in a gym. It's a private expectation in the gym because it's a gym. The gym also had a filming and photography clause that no one was allowed in the background. So why would I assume she was doing it? However, a couple of weeks after this incident, I didn't notice, but a couple of weeks after the incident, I was sent the video. And in the video was her laughing about me in the background and berating people who were talking about me. And I sent her a cease and desist to take it down. And I said, I understand you earn money from this, so either I come after you financially for it and I'm well within my rights, or you take it down and issue an apology. She kicked off at me. She came into the gym. She came up to me and I said, I'm in the gym to lose weight and keep fit. You were in the gym and and encouraged the ridicule of me while I'm on your commercial platform. She had quite a few followers and she was actually posing in the gym outfit that she was paid to endorse. And she said herself, she was an influencer who makes a lot of money. She sells a course on how to make money as a gym influencer, believe it or not. In the end, she took the video down and no apology was issued, but I thought that's a lesson learned. As it turned out, I was not the only person to object to her doing the filming in the gym. The gym got really annoyed. I never mentioned it to the gym because I didn't want to, no, this was between me and her. But another person had experienced the same thing and went mad at her. And then someone mentioned the gym about my issue. And they had screenshotted the video of me and some of the comments, and that's all came out. The reputational damage she got was mad because I believe they also the person who sort of took it a stage further was so upset at the comments they got off her video and how she responded to them that she contacted all the brand people she worked with, and I believe she got dropped by all the brands. So actually, maybe she was a great lesson in how not to make money online anymore. Years ago, like I was all bitter about it. She's actually a really nice girl up to that point. I didn't realize she was that horrible. The stuff she was saying about my body was insane. I know I look like your before picture, babe, but don't be horrible. You're not like this is one of the things I think that sets us apart as an amateur and a professional. And as we can see here, there may be an issue where a professional hasn't acted right, allegedly, but there are many people out here saying the market is saturated and it's full of people not knowing what they're doing. I think this is one of the things that people really don't know what they're doing. They don't do contracts. They make it messy. They make it complicated, and they feel contracts and admin is a bore. I am so angry that people just don't do this from the get-go. I have people who come in from colleges having learnt photography who know nothing about these contracts. They don't do contracts. I literally was mentoring a gentleman a couple years ago who had graduated from a university, and he came for some mentoring lessons, and I said, "Okay, so you got your models in?" He's like, "Yeah." "So what on their contracts did you say how many images go?" "You haven't got a contract." I said, "What do you mean you haven't got a contract?" "No, I just messaged them and they said, yeah." I said, "You still need a contract because what happens if they use the images for something you don't want to use?" "Oh, yeah." And I literally had to draw them up a contract there and then. I was and people have a right to review that contract and have a cooling off period on that contract. So for me, send it ahead of time. Don't get people signing on the day. Nothing should be signed on the day. It should all be signed ahead of time. Give them time to read. That's the whole point. So what I really want you to do, take away from this whole situation, is to go look at your contracts, look at your website, look at what you're selling. If you can't confidently explain why you're allowed to use someone's image in the way you're using it, I would say stop using it. Because the industry is changing and the law is definitely catching up. And every new law dilemma, every new incident that happens, business and legal people are looking at this and tweaking the laws each time. And photographers who refuse to evolve will get dragged legally and publicly. And frankly, I'm going to say it, some of you deserve it. Some of you absolutely do deserve it, because I know for a fact that there was a photographer in a Facebook group who was talking about something. He was warned against doing it, said it will all backfire. He said, no, nothing will happen. And then he was in there crying like up a storm that he was getting sued by this person. We all told him you would get sued. I think he sold like a print to it was a hotel chain, and the girl had actually gone on holiday and walked in on a picture of herself in her own in the bedroom she'd hired. So yeah, it was pretty bad. So yeah, you did deserve it. All right. Anyway, I'm gonna go now because this is it's a late one. I'm actually recording this quite late. I've literally just come back from the gym. It's 11 o'clock at night, so I'm recording this one. Hope this has helped. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you all soon. Well, I'll be in your ear hole soon, I'm sure. Take care, my loves.